dancing.
Hey, we're live. I try to come up with some new way to get us started every week, and so I was dancing. So did you see I got the new logo in there?
Yes, I did. I was so excited. I was like, oh, there's our new logo. It
It's
looks so
not
good.
$1 billion, but hey.
Hey, I said a
I,
billion, but hey, I'll take it.
right. So welcome to the Twisted Pair. So glad that you guys could join us. You know who we are. We want to know who you are, who's on, where you're from, and we're excited about the show that we got tonight. I am.
I am. I'm really excited, even though, okay, so I love my cocktails. What I'm going to just say, what girl doesn't like her cocktails? That's like for all females, it's mainly a go to. So I'm particularly excited about this cocktail because we kind of went in the direction of fall. That was like our kind of like our theme. Even though it's like 95 degrees outside.
It
At what
it's
time? At seven
it's
o'clock?
dropped. It's dropped down. It's down to 90.
Okay, 90. We do not have fall weather, but we
This is
have
fall
fall
for
in our
us.
hearts, okay?
This is fall for us.
That's fall for us. So
I
what are you drinking and smoking? You already started smoking. I didn't
yeah,
start smoking. So what?
I
So go
started
ahead and
so
start.
I am smoking the Illusion F9. Now this one was rated 92 by Cigar Aficionado. So pretty good rating from them on
Mhm.
this. And I am drinking my cocktail is a rum and ginger beer. So this is what it looks like. So it's 2 ounces of rum, 3 ounces of ginger beer, with about a quarter of an ounce of lemon juice or lime juice. Freshly squeezed if you got it. I don't have freshly squeezed, so I'm going broke ass gray beard way on this one. Uh, but this is called a dark and stormy,
But
and I
see,
want
that's such an oxymoron because it's not dark. It
it's
does look
not
kind of
dark.
like hazy. It looks like a hazy IPA.
Well, I mean, well, this is my rum that I went with.
And that's
Um,
some really good rum. That like I love that rum. People knock it,
this
but
rum,
it's a good damn rum,
you know, I'm
especially for the price.
I'm liking it so far. That I got this one from J Doc.
Woo woo! I should have
Yeah,
barked, but that wasn't a bark. I don't know what that was.
so what are you doing?
Okay, so I am going with. I don't think I've ever smoked aroma crafts on the show before.
I was gonna say you better clarify because I know you smoked aroma
Yeah,
craft before.
no, because I enjoy my aroma craft. So this is one of my favorites. It's a craft aqua tune
You
that they
know,
have, and it is an Ecuadorian Habano wrapper. So we kind of been talking about Ecuadorian and Habanos,
quite a bit lately
yeah,
too. Yeah.
and it's kind of like for me it's either like a summer transitioning to fall. I think that's kind of like why it's I was on a Corojo kick. Now I'm on an Ecuadorian Habano kick. You took over my Corojo kick.
Yeah,
I
so
think
so
that's
th-
what it
this
was.
is this is a Corojo 98. But what's interesting on both of those? So hold yours up. So both of these are about the same color on these, and
Mhm.
no, I'm sorry, this is not a Maduro. This is what you would call a natural.
Yeah.
This is a natural tobacco leaf color. It's not a Connecticut. It's not a Maduro. Some would call it a Colorado.
Hmm.
But this is a natural. Both of these leaves are commonly seen in darker Maduro fermentation, especially the
Right.
Habano. But understand, these aren't Maduros.
Right. And my thing is like when I think of a cigar, I think of it like this, as like
hmm
in its natural state. I don't think of it as a Maduro in
Even
the color. You know,
even my
That's
my other one, which is that I brought out for tonight, which is the Warhammer 762.
Hmm.
That's a natural. And
Yeah,
this is a Sumatra, but this is the Indonesian Sumatra, not
right.
the Ecuadorian
Sumatra. So there's a difference.
Sumatra. So that yeah, there's a big difference. So
Difference.
I'm sure I will get through this and get to it. But anyways, welcome everybody.
Oh, I haven't even told about my drink.
I thought you did.
No, I
Well,
told you about
damn.
my drink. I'm gonna go off in Spanish on you, like I went on somebody else today. So
Oh shit. I'm in trouble. Sorry.
yeah,
Forgive
no,
me,
no, we'll
please.
get So, what I did was like, see, like mine even looks like polish. Like, see, look how pretty. I will get used to this camera. I promise doing this way. So, what mine is I have 2 ounces of bourbon, and I used Woodford Reserve, and actually did bourbon, y'all. I didn't do rye. I didn't, stray. I actually did bourbon, and it also had well let me just say, my pour has 4 ounces of bourbon, 4 ounces of apple cider, cold. Then it has 4 ounces of ginger beer and 2 ounces of maple syrup.
Very nice. It sounds delicious. So what's it called? What's the name?
I don't know.
Is this a made up one of your own
Well,
recipes?
it's kind of, you know how I am. I look for recipes and I get different recipes and then I combine things together. And so that it's kind of actually had this in mind. I I saw ginger beer, I saw some maple syrup, I saw some bourbon and all this other stuff. So here was the interesting thing was I was like, I have ginger beer, I have bourbon, and I have some apple cider, and I'm just gonna combine it and see what it tastes like. And I'm like,
So
hey, maple syrup, that sounds good too.
I want a name for it, and you now owe me 3 recipes, 3 cocktail recipes for the website.
I know. I need to get on it. I need to get on it.
You don't even have to edit them. Just send me it, and I'll throw them in there. I'll write it up.
He'll write it up and everything. So, but so I haven't given it a name. So maybe I'll come up with a name. So, like, who knows? So there you
Cocktails
go.
are cocktails are so fun to pair with, but they're also sometimes the hardest
Yes,
drink
to
to
pair
pair
with.
with. Let,
It,
let,
it,
let's let's go into the whys on that for a bit.
okay. So I'm gonna tell you the first off, milk, dairy. Like a lot of times, like you think about a lot of cocktails and they have a lot of cream, they have a lot of
Hmm.
dairies, especially like, one of my favorite cocktails is a chocolatini. I love chocolatinis. I love white Russians. Some people will argue with me and say it's not a cocktail. Hello, it's a cocktail.
Yep.
Okay. So you have dairy. And so dairy is a difficult, whenever you're having your cigar, it alters the taste because it coats the taste buds.
Yes.
That's like the main thing. So even though you're sitting there, oh, it's a cocktail, I can pair it with a cigar. You have to keep in mind it's still gonna coat your tongue, and especially like if it's a chocolatini, and you have it with that chocolate syrup,
Hmm.
that's even adding more coating to your tongue. So there's one thing just right off the bat.
Okay, so let's pause on this for a minute. And how would you, or what kind of cigar would you pair with a dairy or chocolate based cocktail to where that coating
I would go with
does
something.
not cover your tongue, does
Yeah.
not change it, and it doesn't hide the flavors.
Um, I've smoked. Now I'm trying to remember what it was, but I think it was a New World, an AJ New World, when I had a chocolatini, and that was like one pairing that kind of stuck out. and shocks me. Another thing that I would go for, and like some people are probably going to disagree on this one, I would do something almost like the ends of like a black label, like a porcelain, something that's or something that's very heavy with the Nicaraguan binder, filler, and wrapper. With that, it's going to have that esteli. It needs to come from esteli, so it's
Yeah.
got that peppery. That goes really well because it can stand up against that dairy.
I
What would you
would,
do?
I definitely agree with you on that. Um, I would definitely go for some of the more bolder wrappers. Your Cameroon wrapper, your San Andres wrapper,
Mhm. Yeah, San
um,
Andreas does pretty good, but you have to be
your
careful with the binders and the wrappers in a San Andreas. I'm going to say
yeah.
that.
Nope, I agree. If the binder is one of my favorites, the Sumatra, then no, no, no,
Mm-mm.
no, no, no on that one. Um, and it's because those earthy tones in that Sumatra are just that's going to bring out that bitterness. I think where that bitterness when we bring
Mm-hmm.
a dairy product with the tobacco as it interacts with those deep, dark, strong, bold, earthy tones, like in a Sumatra
Mm-hmm.
or in a Criollo, um, those types that doesn't match well, and
Mm-hmm.
that's when we end up getting our bitter beer face. But the
Yeah.
Cameroon is bold.
Mm-hmm.
It's dark, hitting coffee notes in the Cameroon. I
Mm-hmm.
believe would go really well.
Yeah.
Maybe a Honduran or a Nicaraguan Jalapa Habano, where it's got
Mm-hmm.
those really rich, 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 creamy notes. Would
Right.
go good with that.
And you kind of almost have to be careful, like, and that's what I'm saying is like when you with the dairy, you've got to be careful with your binders and your wrapper. You really do because like it could totally set it off. And I call it like to me, it's almost like a skunk. You know, like when you smell a skunk and then you get that
Yes.
taste in your mouth. Dairy can do that to a cigar. So, hi, billionaire. Thank you. Yes, I have my other eye, as you can see. Um, this is wait, this is the good eye. This one, it's still a little bit puffy, but hey, it's not. Graybeard saw what I looked like last time, and it was very
Well,
scary. I don't look
you
scary anymore.
you had your patch
Mm-hmm.
on this eye.
Yeah,
You had your patch on that eye.
yeah, yeah. That's my.
So
I did opposite. So
yeah.
this one's my puffy one, and this is my normal. So you can kind of still, it's a little bit puffy, but I think it looks pretty. I was like, why can't this one now be a little bit more puffy? It looks like I had an eye left or something.
You had some Botox.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
But
so that covers one type of cocktail, and
right.
usually these are what we were just describing would be a highball.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be in a highball type class. Um, you're going to have a lot more of it. You could have it in a rocks glass as well, but I
Or like a
mean,
martini, because like
or
there's a
yeah,
large, yeah,
martini,
because
yeah.
like there's the chocolatini, the White Russians highball, like that. So
Um, Another cocktail base that's really hard to pair with is one that we're both doing that has a ginger beer
yeah.
in it. And I think the big reason on that one is because that ginger beer by itself is a palate cleanser.
Mm-hmm.
Ginger is so you have a ginger ale, you have a ginger beer, you have just ginger itself
Right.
without anything else. That's what we use for a palate cleanser.
Right.
So taking that and matching that sweet but spicy note that's in the ginger, and
Mm-hmm.
then you take that with say like with a rum, where you've got different really bold, complex flavors um, in the cocktail itself,
Mm-hmm.
becomes a little bit more of a challenge to pair with. So you've got to think about again what you're doing. You've got to think about the whole thing,
The
not
whole
just
thing.
the wrapper, but the binder and the fillers and how
Hmm.
all of those are kind of, so this is
Yeah.
what we call a deconstruction pairing, where we're actually deconstructing everything to its components to see how each component is going to fit with the whole.
And here's the thing: is like ginger is one of those things that it can either make something sweet
Hmm.
or extremely spicy. It's like either sweet or spicy. So even though it's a palate cleanser, it enhances. If I can talk tonight, what you're gonna have, you know, to where you'll get it. So, like for example, in mine, because we have my bourbon, right?
Hmm.
Woodford, right, my Woodford bourbon. Then I have the maple. Maple is very sweet.
And maple is also very thick, so you've
Right.
actually you're bringing in that
Hmm.
tongue coating as well, your palate coating
Hmm.
aspect in yours as well.
But I only did like 2.5 ounces because I didn't want it to coat, and I made sure I stirred it really, really well. So, but like maple has got that strong taste in it, so that's why I only did about like two. I didn't even do 2 ounces. I'm sorry. I did like a, you know, yeah, real quick. So I don't even consider
Now,
it like
did everybody get that? Everybody get that? That's the that's a measurement.
it's a red measurement. So it's going to be there for that sweetness, and it's going to bring out that um of it. So there you go. That's what it. But my favorite thing to do with the ginger beer is a mule. Like, oh my gosh, the
You
mules
you
are just
you you
like,
like your mules, but what's interesting is I think that a ginger-based cocktail,
hmm,
even though it's a it is a palate cleanser, as you said, it's an enhancer.
hmm,
You compare you compare a wider variety of cigars with a ginger-based, or
right,
a ginger part that
hmm,
contained cocktail
hmm,
than you can with a dairy or a chocolate
right,
based driven cocktail.
right,
So where I'm coming with a Corojo 98, which if I going with this cigar, I probably not would not pair this cigar with, say, the milk based cocktails.
oh no, that would be like,
Yeah, this is gonna
sorry,
come back with a too much of a that'll come out, lot of that skunk like you
hmm,
were talking about. But so far it's going good with my drink, which is
hmm,
a ginger based. Um, I could go with an Ecuadorian, I can go with a Dominican with it.
yeah,
Especially with mine because the
hmm,
Dominican is going to really enhance the lemon juice, the
right,
lemon and lime juice, and the sweetness of the ginger.
hmm. Um, I think with mine, because I was thinking this or a Sumatra. That was like my other, uh, Ecuadorian Sumatra. And I could have actually gone with, this is going to sound crazy. I could have done a Candela with this,
Ooh,
I could have, yeah, because of that. I could have done a Dominican with it. So, and I'm going to say that it's because of that apple, that apple cider that's in
yeah,
there,
yeah.
that it would have totally. And I almost got a little bit of craziness, and I wanted to put like maybe a cherry, like those fancy cherries that I have, my $25 cherries. Um, but
Bougie, bougie.
yeah, but I was like, nah, I just kind of wanted to like not go over the top, you know. when I was doing it. So, but like mules, and the cool thing about mules is when you're doing mules with ginger beer, you can change your other alcohol. You can have tequila mules, you can have vodka mules.
Mhm.
So that's really cool. And then your fruit. It depends on what fruit you do with your mule. What kind of thing? Like if I were to do like a cucumber and mint mule, I would totally go for like, a Dominican cigar on that because it's just like
Yeah,
refreshing.
I
Yeah.
would too. I would too. So let's talk about some other type of cocktails. I mean, we've had the spritzers on the show.
Mhm.
Let's go back to some old world. Some of the original cocktails.
Mhm.
Let's say a Manhattan.
Oh my!
Manhattan dates back into the 1800s.
Back when
Um,
Graybeard was just born.
oh yes, thank you. Um,
Feeling sassy today.
yeah. Uh, you've got a rye based. You've got vermouth in there. You've got a
Well,
number
and I
of
was going to
different
say the
types.
vermouth also, and that's another thing is like when you're the thing about cocktails is so amazing with this is if you change your vermouth like in a drink, it depends on which vermouth, what kind of vermouth you have. If that's going to completely change the taste and profile of your drink. You could use the same ingredients and use different vermouth, and it's going to change.
Yeah, go from a sweet vermouth to a dry vermouth, or you can
Yeah,
go to a spicy vermouth. There's
the
many
orange
different.
there's even flavored vermouths out there, that I don't think that very many people touch on, but those are normally the homemade vermouths. So and billionaire, we're going to get your questions. I promise we're going to answer, but first we kind of wanted to get through this part of it. So I think that also plays a lot. So like, for me, I like my Manhattans with rye,
Hmm.
like hands down. That is what I'm going to do. And
Now,
also,
now, a standard Manhattan or a perfect Manhattan, because there's a difference between the two.
mine is like a standard. I'm like a standard girl.
I love my standard Manhattans, but I also love a good black Manhattan.
So like and my thing is like another thing is like, and people do not on Manhattans. It depends on what cherries you're putting in there and that cherry juice, because the more bougie the cherry, the better.
Yeah.
I'm just
No,
I'm just saying
it
it like it is.
you're not wrong. You are not wrong. A lot has to come down with it.
Because
A lot of
it's
it comes into that.
because if you're using the cocktail cherries and those juices, it doesn't give it that flavor as much, you know. So, that's another thing is kind of like those old ones. What was the other one? Because you said an old fashioned.
Yeah. So you got the old fashioned.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that comes into play that comes in. Um,
That's one that you could almost do with like any cigar. I think that's why it's so popular with cigar smokers.
I think so too.
Except for like,
I
I don't think yeah, I'm sitting here trying to think. Because I've had, like, I'm seriously thinking, like, I think I've had like every type of. I don't think I've ever done a Candela with the Manhattan. Have you done a Candela with the Manhattan?
I have, and I think it wasn't very good, but there's different types of simple syrups that you can. So a variation on the old fashioned
Yeah.
would go good. I've got a champagne simple syrup in my fridge
Ooh.
that a good friend of mine made for me. That would go good with a candela
Mm-hmm.
because you want to have something that brings out the lemon and lime citrus
Right.
to go with the candela and not your orange citrus.
Right.
So
I'm just sitting here thinking, because like I'm wondering what like a jalapeno. Like people are gonna sit there and think I'm crazy and I've lost my mind and the meds are getting to me. but like a jalapeno simple syrup, it's kind of make it Tex-Mex.
You know that
And do
you
lime instead of like the orange. You see where
yeah.
I'm going here?
I see exactly where you're going with this, and it's almost like the cocktail that you had come up with and
Hmm.
had done last year with your southern yellow rose, spicy
Yeah,
southern yellow
spicy.
rose.
Yeah, spicy yellow rose infusion, and and that kind of brings us to another one. Is you have tequila. That's like another good base. I think it's like when you have like cocktails, you think about like I always think about like the base. Okay, what do I have in my house that I can mix with it?
Hmm.
And it's like vodka, tequila, bourbon. Um, I mean, those are like the main three that are like in my house that I use. Rum, that's another one, like rum.
Rum.
Uh, so I think it's kind of like you go based off what's in your house, and that's the most common ones that I have. And then it's like the simple syrups. My favorite simple syrup is like the jalapeno because I love it that it has a bite, but it's got a sweetness to it. It's kind of like an oxymoron. You wouldn't expect a sweet jalapeno, but that's what it comes down to.
Oh no, the jalapeno itself is has a lot of sweetness to it.
Mm-hmm.
Even your habanero and your ghost chilies have sweetness to
Right.
it. You just got to be able to get past that those
First bite.
Scoville units, and start picking up the flavors on it. Um, I do want to give a couple of shout outs. We've got some new viewers. Zoradia Rodriguez, thank you for joining. I hope I pronounced your name right. Please don't shoot me, and Joe, don't kill me if I didn't. Alex, I'm not even going to try to pronounce your last name there, Alex, because I know I'll butcher that one. But welcome.
Say hus, Alex. Say hus. Hello,
Say
hello.
us. So
Hus.
welcome. Thank you guys for joining.
Yes.
Please make sure you hit that subscribe button for those of you watching on YouTube, and for those of you not watching on YouTube, make sure to click the like on our page. Uh, it, we're kind of going down a path here, which is what's the part that makes cocktails fun. Is that okay? You've got your standard recipes for especially your classics, your classic
Right.
old fashioned, which is going to be your 1.5 to 2 ounces of bourbon or rye,
Mm-hmm.
your half ounce of simple syrup, your
Right.
bitters, um, and then
You
your
might have your
garnishes.
vermouth, your garnishes. Yeah.
You can your Manhattan, bring it into vermouth. A perfect Manhattan is going to be
Mm-hmm.
equal parts of sweet and dry with simple syrups, with vermouth, with the different cordials, such as Cointreau and that all of the other different cordials. You can add spins on your
Yeah.
drinks and essentially create different drinks that is going to just open up those different
Mm-hmm.
flavors and the different um, options, for what to pair with. One of my favorite old fashions, which is the one Kelly
Mm-hmm.
uh, from Michael's out in
Michael.
Keller.
Yeah.
She did a coffee infused old fashioned, and
Oh yeah.
what she did is she took coffee and she made her ice balls from the coffee
Yeah.
itself, and
Yeah.
then allowed that slow diffusion
Mm-hmm.
of it and let it meld with the flavors of it. And it was just such a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful drink.
And that's the thing is that I think that's why and I'm just gonna say it, and people can jump on at me and say stuff, and I don't care. So I think that's why women love cocktails so much because there's such a variety of them, and you can do so much with it. And then I think people are kind of nervous to do cocktails with cigars because it's kind of, one thing that I'm getting, which is like shocking, is if I smoke my cigar first, then take my drink, that pepper, that white pepper,
Hmm.
in my cigar is like heightened to the next level.
That's interesting. What
But if I do my drink to the
I was about to
cigar,
ask.
it's more of like, those fruity, like those earth notes that you're going to get from the Ecuadorian Habana wrapper. It's
Hmm.
very earthy. And it's because it's that apple. You're getting that taste of apple first. But then when I do it the other way, it's that ginger is kicking that
Just
white
kicking
pepper.
that white pepper
Yeah.
up, that spice up. Very nice.
Hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
let's take a break for a moment and let's do some news and events.
Okay, so events. So this Friday at the Underground at 7 p.m., there will be a special bottle night with Eric Bay with Black Star or Black. I always get this confused.
Black Star Line.
Black Star Line. I told him one day I'm going to get it. So they're going to be there for a cut and light, and Leaf and Grain is hosting a bottle night to go with their cigars. And, they have one of my favorites, which is the War Witch. And then if you haven't tried the new cigar that they did with Black Label, and it's like rosewood, that
Hmm.
is very phenomenal. Like all of their cigars are just like great. I mean, it's just kind of like I can't pick one. So it's going to be an amazing night with different tastings. Also, the same night, Renegade's having their annual VIP bash. So if you have gotten tickets for that, that is going on. If not, I'm not sure if there's tickets, but go ahead and check Renegade out in Dallas. Another one that is coming up is Lake Worth out, and that is October the 20th from 4 to 7 p.m. They have, I want to say, about like 20 different vendors coming out. So it's insane the deals that you get whenever they put on their fall bash that they have. I remember like I came like one package that like Crown Head did was normally 100 and something, like $120, and I got it for $30. It was insane.
Wow.
It is like the packages that they have, and you'll get 10, 13 cigars for more than like 75% off. So it is like a steal when y'all do that. So and then hopefully Graybeard will go live at Bottle Night. Usually we try to go to, but sometimes we're busy helping people, so that may not happen. So don't expect that. But we'll try. Okay. So those are like events that are happening. So if you have any events that is in your area with cigar, brewery, coffee, or anything, just let us know, and we will be more than happy to advertise it. So that is what I have.
All right, for our news, this one just came in today. Crown Heads, which we're all big fans of Crown Heads. We love our Crown Heads. Crown Heads has brought in three new sales reps. Two of them, as of today, Craig Smith, who he's going to be covering a lot of the Indiana and the Ohio region, and not to discount Craig, I just don't know a lot about him, but a friend of ours and who now used to be with McAuliffe. Andy
Oh,
Yaffe has joined up with Crown Heads, and he's going to be covering the Tennessee, Kentucky, all of that area over there. So that's gonna be exciting to see. Um, this one I'm really interested in. Jack Daniels has
mm-hmm.
released an American single malt. So they are stepping outside of the Tennessee whiskey. Now we've seen them step outside before when they did a ride. They did a ride not long ago and introduced
Hmm.
their
Yeah.
rides, and I mean we love their ryes. I've got a number of the different ryes
Hmm.
from their single barrel selects, and then they stepped in and started doing some bottled and bonds, which they haven't done in for a long time. Now they're bringing into the American single malt. What makes this so interesting is that within the past year and a half, their American single malt is now a classified spirit, which up until then it
Yeah.
wasn't.
Yeah. I was gonna say that's just like recent.
This is
Like,
this is this
yeah.
is recent. So what they're saying is that the Jack Daniel's American Single Malt finished in Oloroso sherry casks, which is wonderful,
Ooh.
and it's sticking to the tradition of the single malts.
Hmm.
Um, is a new take on timeless single malt traditions. Crafted from 100% malted barley that is ground, fermented, and distilled there in Lynchburg, and just like the old number 7, it is going to pass through the traditional charcoal mellowing process, and then matured for at least 4 years in a new charred American white oak barrels, and then
Wow.
finished for 2 years in the Spanish Oloroso sherry casks that come directly from
Wow.
Andalusia, Spain.
So, so here's my thing: is what's the price point on this baby? Did it say?
I do not see a price point on this yet, but I am wanting to grab a bottle of this. I am looking forward to finding out more about this. So I mean, when you think about this, this has got 4, 5, 6 years age on it. On
Well,
this,
that's why I was asking. I was like, it's a
yes,
bougie.
it's
They
it's a
stepped it
bougie
up.
drink. Oh yeah. This one I found interesting. Okay, so this is coming from Cigar Aficionado.
Okay.
Okay, and we respect Cigar Aficionado and Whiskey Advocate and Wine Spectre for everything that they've done to help each of these industries grow. But they surveyed 291 cigar shops to find the hottest and best-selling cigar brands in the United States, and they've got 10 of them.
Yeah.
Now, let's see if you can guess what 5 of those 10 are.
Romeo y Julieta.
Yep, that comes in at tied for
Uh,
number 7.
Olivia. Not Olivia. Oliva.
Nope, not on
No.
there.
Rocky Patel.
Number 10.
Okay. Monte Cristo.
No.
Man, because like I'm trying to think of like the ones that I normally like that are mainstream. Davidoff.
Yes, Davidoff is number 4.
Let's see. I said Davidoff. Uh, Monte Cristo. Romeo and Julieta. Punch, like the Camacho, like
Nope.
none of those. Okay.
And actually, there's none. The only one that would fit within that Cuban style
Mhm.
is the Romeo Julieta.
Oh, okay. Now, is this in the United States or worldwide?
This is United States.
Golly. I guess I'm gonna
It
have to throw a helpline. I need a helpline.
Okay, so billionaire said the Padron, which the standard Padron is number 3, and then the Padron
Yeah.
64 anniversary series is number 5.
Oh, yeah, it's good. Uh, AJ Fernandez or um,
No.
Arturo Fuente.
Number 1 and 2. Opus X is number 1, and the standard Fuentes is number 2. What's interesting, there's Liga Privada comes in at number 7, and the only one that would fit into the boutique line is the My Father.
And look, I'm wearing. Well, y'all can't see, but I'm wearing a My Father shirt.
Yes, yes. So My Father comes in at 9. What's interesting is the drop off Puente Opus X is at 34.6%, then Arturo Puente 29, Padron 27, and then it drops down to 14 with the Davidoff. LFD with the Andalusian Bull and the Padron 64 are
Mhm.
both at 12.3, and then we drop down into the 11s and 9%. So I mean, it's a pretty steep decline there.
Mhm.
Uh, when we come back, what would some of your top 10 boutiques be? Let's go. What would your top five? Let's make it easier. What would your top five boutiques be when we'll come back? We'll be right
Are we
back.
talking brands?
We'll be right back. So yes, let's just make it easier with brand. Your top five brands. Boutique.
Um, Oliva. That is one that like I can never go wrong. I'm gonna say Black Label.
Okay.
And the other one. Like I'm just gonna say the other that
The
and then
the
let me see.
Ovejo Negro factory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Aganorsa. Golly. See, you're putting me on the spot, and I'm like, ah.
Oh, don't worry. I'm going next, so I put you on the spot so that way I can go through
You
some.
can sit there and think. I'm sitting here trying to think of like the ones that I go to. Oh my gosh, you think this would be easy for me, like to sit here and just like
Especially
rattle
considering
off?
you worked in the shop for the in a shop for the past year and a half or so, as you were doing your apprenticeship.
Well, I've been up since 4:40 this morning, so
Oh,
my
excuses,
brain's.
excuses, excuses, excuses.
um. So, oh my gosh, like I'm having a brain freeze. This is embarrassing that I can't sit here and think of. So I oh my gosh. Uh, I'm sitting here thinking. Oh my gosh.
Well, you continue.
Here,
You
go. You
continue.
go.
You
Because like I'm sitting here thinking because I'm like
yeah.
I'm dead to the world tonight.
You continue thinking on that. What I found is interesting, and one of the ones that you came up with is Oliva. And Oliva, the Oliva O is a standard go-to when you're introducing somebody new to cigars.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that
Definitely.
wasn't on the list, but yet my father's, which I'm so proud that my father's
Yeah.
was on the
I,
list.
I would even go with my father's, and let me tell you, it's because I'm gonna go with my father's because like, and there's one that is like so that people don't know about, and they just recently came out in a new robusto size, and it's the Don Pepin, and it is the Vega Cubana or Cubana Vega.
Yeah, yeah, that's the white label one, isn't it?
Oh, no, it's the green. It's the neon green
Oh,
one.
it's the green. Okay, okay.
And that hands down is like phenomenal. Like, all that. I mean, that is just amazing. Um, so I would also go with, I'm sitting here like thinking of the different ones in the cigar lounge. I'm going through the bays. Is that not horrible? Oh, Rojas. I mean, you can't go wrong with like a Rojas. That's just one that it's
See,
just,
and I was thinking Rojas myself, but this is where I'm kind of coming to is that when we think about on they interviewed 291 stores. So if we were to interview 291 stores of what was their top five or top 10 boutiques, and we both live in the boutique world, but when
right.
we think about it at that scale, I'm thinking Tatawahe.
Oh, I thought you were asking for my personal favorite ones. Oh, I misunderstood. Okay.
No, no, I'm just. I mean, I'm kind of like,
Hmm.
some kind of brainstorming out loud on this.
Foundation.
Found,
Foundation.
foundation is pretty well known,
Yeah.
pretty out
Hmm.
there quite a bit. Um, so you got to talk Roma Craft.
Yeah. Oh,
I,
and the
I would
Roma
think
Craft
that
is like a.
Roma Craft
Hmm.
is pretty well out there. Does Rojas fit up there in that category? Does Black Star Line or Black Label or uh,
It it
do
and I
they
think
hit
they
that level?
are.
It does, but that doesn't mean that they're. I mean, in
It
our
doesn't mean that.
world, each of these sell
Right.
really good,
Right.
but
That's
in
in
the
our area.
yeah
Yeah.
in a bigger area, Crown Heads.
Oh crap! How did we forget Crown Heads when we're sitting here talking about it? Hello. I'm
Um,
even gonna go with like Boothie. You know, like with that whole general area.
Boothie
Uh,
Room 101. Yeah,
but I mean, he like that one is based on what the area. But I'm just gonna say, like now that he's working with General and they're all in there together, that makes that even bigger. Um, to me, another one in this one is it's boutique Fuente. That one's a boutique thing, and I think that that's kind of people go in there and they know Fuente cigars.
yeah. Fuente does absolutely have some cigars that would
Mhm.
fit in that boutique line.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
if you think about it, um, J.C. Newman, J.C.
Mhm.
Newman, where Carlito and well Don Carlito
Mhm.
and Newman himself, they started all of this together
Right.
there in Miami 100 years
Mhm.
ago.
Yeah.
So does J.C. Newman fit in that line as well? And
Uh,
they've got
it,
some great cigars.
and it could be even like this one is like Rocky Patel. He sells really, really well. Like everybody goes in, they're looking for Rocky Patel. That's like one that's like if you think about like the main lounges across America, you're gonna see Rocky Patel in there.
Yeah, I
So
I would love to see from some of our viewers all across your different areas. What are some of the top boutiques
that are
that
across main lounges,
that are
you know.
across main lounges? I mean, yeah, because we could go in and we could say a number of different boutiques, but that
Hmm.
are not quite as widespread as they
Right.
are. And the only way that we can get them more widespread is by us going to our brick and mortars and saying, hey,
Hmm.
I really want to pick up some of these particular cigars. It's kind of like Fred Espinal with the Espinal
Yeah.
Puros. We had him on the
Hmm.
show a couple weeks ago. Beautiful cigars.
Phenomenal
Um,
cigar.
Casada
Yeah,
cigars.
I've had that one.
Had him on the show.
Karen. Karen.
Carrot
With
Carrot
K by
Burgers,
Karen. Yeah.
which Bruce has been pushing it and hitting it and getting
Hmm.
them into more markets. Uh, but when you're talking about the top five sellers,
Hmm.
I'm impressed and I'm pleased to see my father's is
Yeah.
in there. I'm really happy. I'm happy to see LFD is in there because LFD is
Hmm.
not a big seller. The Andalusian Bull, yes,
Hmm.
but the other LFD lines, to go in and see the Digger and the cabinet number 5 and the cabinet number 6, and the other offerings, that LFD has, which they have a number of great offerings.
Right. So I mean that would be interesting for to see like that because like there's some boutique cigars that do better in certain regions and other regions and it's like you try to go to find them and you can't find them. So, I mean, I think that would be an interesting, thing to see. Like,
Let's go back.
yeah, go
Drunk
ahead.
chicken. I was just going to
Yeah.
say let's go back and revisit some of billionaire's questions because he had some good
Hmm.
questions here. So his first one is that is there any part of the year that we smoke cigars more than any other time of the year? So let's bring that one in as we're talking about um, our pairings, because and then what kind of pairings we would do in different types of years.
So, like, okay, so repeat the question again. It was like, is there certain times that we smoke?
So is there
Okay.
any part of the year that we smoke more than any other time of the year?
Yeah.
And then with that, talking about any favorite fall cigar and alcohol pairings as well as mocktail suggestions.
Okay. Uh, I'm gonna
That,
say like summer's my go-to, just because I don't have to work. I get that opportunity because I'm not working, so I get to smoke from home. I can't smoke at my job; they frown upon it. So I would say that.
I get to take my
Graveyard, graveyard's just 24/7. I'm just gonna say that. 365.
I find myself smoking more in the spring and fall than I do in the summer and winter just because
Hmm.
it's
So damn hot.
smoking when it's 105 outside it's hard no matter what type of cigar you're smoking on that. Uh,
Yeah.
my favorite fall pairing. I'm gonna have to defer to Red on this one because I'm not a I'm not a season type pairer. I pick a cigar and then I find something that I want to pair it with. Now if it's summertime, obviously I'm not going to pair it with something that's really heavy or go with a heavier cigar. But as far as particular pairing in the fall, no, I can't say that I do.
Um, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna go for like my well, it depends. Like it depends on here's my thing. If I am doing like a peanut butter uh because there's a peanut butter uh bourbon drink whiskey that I made. I did it last year and it was just really, really good. And I enjoyed it with see, and now I'm sitting here trying to figure out which cigar it was. But like for me, it's more of like the Dominican and Ecuadorian and Sumatras. Those are like you know, I think more of the Dominican is kind of like my go-to for my fall,
Hmm.
and my Ecuadorian and Sumatra. To me, those are kind of like my fall cigars, because they pair really well with like the fall drinks. They pair well with like apples. They pair well with my pumpkins. Um, and that's my thing is like I really enjoy pumpkin beers. And y'all and I used to knock. I kid you not. I would say, oh, I make fun of the white girls with the pumpkin spices and the pumpkin coffee. And
Right.
and my daughters challenged me. They're like, "Mom, you need to try it." And I'm like, "I tried it a long time ago and I didn't like it." And let me tell you, I love me a pumpkin beer. If I can find me a good pumpkin beer, and then another thing is like pumpkin pies, man. That's like one of the best
Oh
pies
no no no.
that you can pair with a cigar. Don't no me. Don't you dare no me.
I don't like pumpkin though. I'm just not. I
Yeah,
mean,
but you gotta release your inner white girl. I'm gonna like my girls
I
challenge me.
don't have an inner white girl. I
Everyone
don't.
has an inner white girl.
Oh my goodness. So,
So that's just
all right.
me.
Next question. Ever done two pairings in one cigar? Start with one drink and then switch it up, or just to like do one pairing only. Uh, yeah, I absolutely have. I've written a number of different articles, pairing articles on multiple
Flights.
drink pairings.
That's why they
Um,
made flights.
yep, flights. Um, one of my favorite ones was with the 2021 Crown Heads 4 Kicks, where it started off with a wine, and it was a Syrah from Northern Rhone Valley. And then once I got more towards the middle, uh, picked it up with a bourbon and went to the Milam and Green's triple cask, just because it just fit much better than what the wine did as that transition. And then as was coming back out to the final third, where the cigar's creaminess and pepper was really starting to pick up, went back to the Syrah and got just like I was had three different pairings throughout, even though it was one wine on the front end and the back end.
Right.
But that middle end paired better with the bourbon on it. So even in the sommelier or the cigar sommelier from International Cigar Sommelier Association, that courseware, they even talk about doing multiple pairings on a
Mhm.
cigar, and just pay attention to what your cigar is doing and how it's pairing. And as we've always said, don't get rid of the cigar. Change the drink as it's transitioning, and then maybe revisit.
Mhm. Yeah. I think that's kind of like, uh, a lot of people just think that they have to have one drink with their cigars. No, that's boring.
It's boring. Even
Yeah.
even mix food
Even though
up
I'm
with it.
having one. Yeah.
Even mixed food. Yeah, I'm having one, but as soon as I finish this, I may just go to straight rum and see how that does.
See, and my thing is like, I would have enjoyed like an apple pie with this too. Like with
Mm.
that cinnamon. That would have been like apple pie and this, like, and my cigar. That'd have been yum. I'll put
Or
some.
maybe a peach cobbler.
I think the peach cobbler might have been too much with the apple cider though, because I didn't put any, like, there's no cinnamon in it.
I think a peach cobbler would go good with this one.
Yeah.
With the molasses from that's the part of that the rum is coming from.
So, and I mean, I have molasses, but I don't know. I would have to see. I think I would like I would like apple pie. I guess I'm in a fall mood. Apple.
So the coming more towards the winter time with the peach cobbler maybe.
Peach cobbler springtime.
See, I mean it's
That's
like
a
the different.
spring.
See, this is like matching clothes up to the oh well, you're wearing fall clothes and this is springtime. Look, I don't care. This is what I wanted to wear, so this is what went on. This is what I want to pair with, so this is what I'm gonna do.
Well, you just do you, boo boo. I'm going for the like the seasons, and like that's another thing is like when you're sitting there thinking like eggnog, that's actually a pretty good thing to what's he say?
You
Cobbler
said,
something you make in the Dutch oven while sitting by the fire.
see, that's what I'm talking about. Cobbler is a hot, it's a hot. You eat it when it's hot, wintertime.
So you
Out,
can do an apple. You can do an apple cobbler.
you and your apples. You and your
Same.
apples.
Well, it's like pumpkin. I'm telling you, one of the best cigar pairings is pumpkin pie. You would be amazed with what all can go with pumpkin pie in a cigar.
Okay, so this is a good question. Let's do our final verdict first, though, and we'll come back to this question. as I jump over to there. All right, final verdict on the pairing with the cocktail. What's your thoughts?
I really liked it because it was complimentary yet deconstructive at the same time, depending
Any
on which way you smoked it.
anything that you would do differently?
I'm curious of what the cherry juice, you know, my fancy cherries. I think that it would have changed it up a little bit, and I don't think it would have been quite so spicy. I think it would have toned it down. So
Okay.
I think that could have been like a an interesting thing to add the cherry juice.
Okay. So and she will be sending me the recipe of her drink so that I can post it on the website. So you guys have heard it here. And those of you who've tuned in for the
Mhm.
prize, we are going to be announcing spinning for the winner for the prize here in a bit. We that is going to come, so
Mhm.
hang on with us. Mine. This has been a good pairing, but for me, it's not a great pairing. I I think I probably would have wanted to go with the should have gone with the Sumatra cigar. I think that with that earthiness that's in the
Yeah.
Indonesian Sumatra, I think it would have probably brought out the rum a little bit more in the drink, and the
Yeah.
the 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 Corojo that's in
Yeah.
this one kind of overshadows the rum.
I could see that 100% because like that corojo can be kind of like strong,
Yeah,
you know.
and it's like I said, it's not bad. It's not a bad pairing. It's not something. There's no bitterness. I'm not, getting any of those skunky notes, skunky flavors from the pairing. But it just didn't. It just
Knock
didn't
your socks
inspire
off.
me. No, it didn't. They're still on. Um, so for me, this particular pairing, the Corojo wrapper with the rum ginger beer drink, not a recommended go to for me. So final verdict: we've got one yes and one no, and that was the. Okay, so back to the question. Do you have any favorite notes in a cigar, as well as are there any notes that we dislike? Billionaire's not much of a pepper fan.
Billionaire isn't? No, he isn't. He needs
Mm-mm.
to he needs to try that pepper.
We,
Um,
we need to get him some good cigars that have some nice, good, strong pepper notes.
so like my thing is what I really love is like those floral notes that you can only get in one area in Nicaragua. And you can only they only roll like they only get the tobacco at certain parts of the day. They go like 10 o'clock and they leave at 2 uh, because of how dangerous that area is after nightfall and how hard it's to get to. Uh, to me, like to me that screams like old Cuba. Like
Hmm.
you want to know what a cigar tastes like from old Cuba, old world Cuba. It's that floral note, and it just like it goes beautifully with wines. It goes beautifully with rye. Uh, you know, to me, that's one of my favorite notes to get, and it's not very common. And I think that's probably another reason why I like it. It's not very common. You can get creaminess and all that other one, but we're talking about my favorite.
I think my favorite. I yes, my favorite is probably is right now is probably the Sumatra.
Hmm.
Um, I'm gonna have to say I really like the Ecuadorian Sumatra and the
Hmm.
things that the Oliva family is doing on the Ecuadorian. Um, I love that tropical fruit note. I love um, that tropical fruit note that's mixed in with that earthiness
Hmm.
of it. And the Sumatra gives you that earthy, that dusty, leathery type notes. Those have
Hmm.
just been really hitting it for me lately. Uh, and my preferences do change. I mean, because I was on a big San Andreas kick for a long time,
Hmm.
with its peppery and chocolatey. So you've got that spicy, sweet, creamy notes with it.
Hmm.
I, I would say that notes that I'm not a huge fan of would probably be the really super greeny, grassy notes like from a candela. But I do like a good candela, but those super greeny, grassy notes from the candela, I'm not a huge fan of. I prefer it to be a little bit more barnyard type hay, like what you get out of the Dominican Republic.
And I like my greeny grass, you know. And I'm gonna say, like, for me to say, like, there's one that I really don't prefer. I I think that would be hard for me because, like, I love my candelas, I love my Sumatras, I love, you know, my Ecuadorian, I love. I think that one for me would be harder. I don't think there's one that I can say because I've been on different kicks. Like, I was on a San Andreas kick before you were. Then, like,
Yes.
when I was on my San Andreas, then you're kind of like, oh, you were too. But, like, I mean, I'm gonna go. Then I went on a Corojo kick for like I don't know for how long. Like, that was my thing for the summer, like the spring
Yeah,
and
you were on a
summer.
big time Corojo
I
kick through
was
the summer.
through the summer. That was like my go-to. I couldn't get enough of it. I mean, that was like the insane thing about it is I couldn't get enough. Um, and then, like, I'm always Nicaraguan because I love that spicy, you know. So I mean, I think for me, it just kind of it's difficult for me to say. I don't think there's one that I've had that I'm like, ugh, you know.
Yeah, well, even with me, I mean, the
Yeah.
that Candela, I mean, I'm not like like I can't smoke it, I won't smoke it. I can't. The flavors in a cigar that I don't like are usually because the cigar is too young.
Right. And I think it's because, like, I drink more IPAs, and you think about what goes with the IPAs is
It's
Candelas,
the
like that
Candelas, yes.
beautiful, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and I think that's probably why.
So,
So,
so Gabe says, hot take on pepper. I don't mind it when it's naturally there, but I think some blenders go adding it, and I'm not a big fan in that case. Yeah, some blenders, because they wanting to bring out a more, a stronger cigar, so they're gonna, probably add a bit more Ligeros from the Esteli, the Contigo region. Um, I can see that. Joe says that he is a big fan of the Brazilian Arap, uh, that one,
uh, Arapiraca.
Arapiraca. I I
Arapiraca. I made
I
it
love
Spanish,
that.
but it's not. It should be more Portuguese sounding.
I it all sounds Spanish to me. I do love that wrapper. I think it's a beautiful wrapper. I
But it's not
pref-
widely used.
No, it's not, and it's very hard to use. It's
Yeah.
like the Modafina. The Modafina wrapper, also from Brazil, is more
Mm-hmm.
widely used than the Arapat, that one.
Arapatia. I don't
The
even know.
the
I
Braz-
can't.
the Brazilian A wrapper.
The Brazilian.
Modafina the Modafina is more widely used. My problem with with the way that a lot of them are using the Modafina is that they're not using them right, in my opinion. Um, they're good cigars, but the CAO Brasilia, which uses the Modafina, it's a good
Hmm.
cigar, but I
Right.
really think they should let it age a little bit longer to
Yeah.
let those
No,
stone fruits come out more.
I agree. Like to me, I think it's kind of young. It would be beautiful. Another one I'm going to go for. I've had a couple of Puerto Ricans,
Oh yes, yes,
and some have been knocked it out of the park, while some have made like strikeouts. I'm just like, ooh, didn't like
yeah.
that. So
I
I can think of like off the hand. I've had two Puerto Ricans that were phenomenal. Then I had two Puerto Ricans that just like sucked.
Yeah,
I don't know how else
nope.
to say it.
I'm with you there, and the same for me with the Peruvian. I've had some
Mm,
Peruvians that were just out of this world good, and it's like, why are these not more widely known? And then I've had a Peruvian that's like, that's why these are not more widely known.
hmm. And here's one that I'm gonna go like what Gabe said. He's like his favorite flavors are like the salt, cream soda, raisin, and the cocoa nibs. And I'm gonna like raisin or what else? What else do we call it? Ah, ah.
I
Like the asinine. Like how do you say it? It's not asinine. The oh my goodness, I can't think of it. But like that like I think like the raisin, like when you get the raisin, those are like some of the best cigars for dessert.
yes, and those
And I have no recipe.
a lot of those come from Brazil.
Hmm.
A
So it
lot
kind
of
of
those,
brings that back into the Brazil.
yep, kind of brings it back. Um, this is an interesting point that he makes. Several brands that were moved from Davidoff Dominican to Nicaraguan shops that they weren't in and added pepper to literally every blend and actually put people off from the Nika cigars for a while. The Davidoff Nika, the Davidoff
Hmm.
Nika is one that does that. That seems that way, and then I would also say the Drew Estate Nika Roostos, which are supposed to be the same with the Ligas. They're in the Liga Privada
Hmm.
family, but yeah, just they're good, but the pepper is just a bit, maybe a little bit too overpowering.
Too much. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's the thing. Is and yeah, La Aurora did it too.
La Aurora did it too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like big time on that one.
but
And
I do love the La Aurora Ruby. The La Aurora
well,
Ruby
red's always
cigars
good.
is such a great cigar. Yes, yes, red is always good. It's interesting how well, and to Gabe's point, so this has happened when they moved, and when you move from one region to another region, and you're looking for something that tobacco may not be in that region,
Hmm.
you go into and bringing tobacco from other regions to try to add into it, and sometimes it just doesn't blend right,
Right.
especially when you're used to a particular profile from a
Hmm.
cigar. It's like the Davidoff Nikas. When we're used to a particular profile from the Davidoffs, from Cuba, and the Davidoffs from Dominican Republic, and then brings in something else.
Hmm.
It kind of comes back to when we were talking about the other week, with our reviews. You have an expectation
Hmm.
because of the brand and because of what you're used to, and that expectation is gone.
Right. And I want to kind of answer billionaire's question if you could bring that one up.
Yeah.
Yes. So on this one, it says this may be cigar 101, but when it comes to a freshly rolled cigar, I heard you should wait to smoke it. Or is that a myth? So I'm gonna like it depends on the tobacco. It really depends on the
Hmm.
tobacco. If the tobacco is hasn't aged that long and it hasn't been there and it's freshly rolled, it's not gonna be a good one. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna straight up. But if you've had tobacco that's aged, and one that I'm gonna say is kind of like one who comes to mind is Luciano. A very very good friend of ours, and he has rolled fresh cigars right there in front of us, and it like smoking it tastes like an well aged cigar. Um, so I just kind of want to say, it depends on the age of the tobacco, and that's what I'm going to go with. Graybeard, what do you think?
I agree 100%. There is one label, one brand that they rush their cigars out, and they rush their cigars out typically in how they're aging them, to where they're doing a hot aging room as opposed to a temperature controlled aging room to force that fermentation to go faster. And when you smoke them, you're
Hmm.
getting really what tastes like a younger cigar. You let it
Right.
age, you let it sit in your humidor for a while, a couple of months, and it gets a lot better. So yeah, it depends upon the cigar, it depends upon the tobacco, and it depends upon
The
who's
roller
doing it, the roller, who's doing it.
and how the technique that they're using. It's kind of like Gabe said. That's a loaded question because there's some that it's just been like, you know, it's young tobacco. It hasn't been fermented correctly. It hasn't been stored. Like, and my thing is like, I have a wedding next week, and you know, they're hiring a cigar roller. Well, my thing is like, I know who the cigar roller is. He's actually one of our good friends. So, will I smoke that cigar? Yeah, because I
Yeah.
know him. I know the tobacco. But if it, like, for example, for like Miami, when I went down there and I went to like Ochoa, 8th Street, um, Calle de Ocho,
Hmm.
I wouldn't do it because like I'm not familiar with them. I'm not familiar with their process. There's sometimes that they put tobaccos that are like really young and really old together, and it kind of makes it have an interesting flavor. So I think it depends. But in all honesty, like it's kind of like when I get cigars, the longer that it acclimates to my humidor, the more I enjoy it.
Yeah, 100% agree. Um, I think Joe brings out a good point here. Consumers are too educated now for companies to be pushing out cigars too
Yeah.
quickly. They are, but unfortunately, a lot of consumers aren't stepping up and saying
Hmm.
anything. And then we have a lot of people who smoke cigars to smoke cigars for the image that it creates.
Right.
And they're smoking a cigar and they're like wanting to go for the big ones, or and I'm trying to step carefully around a brand that we know and that does the
Hmm.
exact same thing that we're talking about, and people go to that because they're big cigars, and they're creating a market for cigars to be rushed, to be pushed out. COVID had a lot to do with it too.
Hmm.
COVID, and
Yeah.
with the shutdown that we experienced a couple of years ago, had a lot to do with it, where a lot of manufacturers were, had to push cigars out because they were out of tobacco, and they were putting out products that for us just didn't hit what we were looking for.
Yeah. I agree with that. And I think that, like, some, like some people don't like, it's like, with me working in the lounge, some people don't really give an F of what it tastes like. They just want that image. But like I think also COVID also made the cigar people become more educated, because that's when we started having herbs. That's when we started talking to the owners and the factories and the blenders and everything, to see how it all came to play. So I think that, I think people became more the consumer became more educated, and they wanted to learn. And then once they got that knowledge, they didn't want to lose it. And then when they applied that knowledge and they're like, oh my gosh, the cigars are so much better this way, uh, the expectations were set higher.
Yeah, no,
Does that
I
make
agree.
sense?
It makes 100% sense to me because one, that's how we were first introduced to Luciano was through the Zoom herps that we would do.
Mm-hmm.
Where there's like 30 of us getting on there. That's what we're doing right now. I don't know that we would have been doing this right now if it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't for the COVID. Wasn't for the pandemic.
Yeah.
But you've got not just us, but we've got a lot of people, that are doing shows and bringing out education and teaching more about it, and we're creating more cigar
Of
smokers, more
awareness.
aficionados, more of awareness for that. And so I think that we're starting to see the industry change a little bit in kind of a bi-directional way to where some companies are still pushing them out too soon because they want to get a foothold on the market space while it's still exciting to get a hold of it. In the cigar
Mm-hmm.
industry, it has slowed down some, but it's still on an upward trajectory.
Right.
We had that news a couple of weeks ago from the Scandinavian Tobacco Company. Where they said that they saw a drop in sales, but it's still, from their projections, but it's still on an
Right.
upward trajectory. And we know that they are because if it wasn't, then they wouldn't have gone out and acquired Rumo 101. They wouldn't have gone out and spent $58 million to acquire Alec Bradley. No company's going to spend that kind of money to acquire something on a downward trend industry, and we're still in
Right.
an upward trend industry. But what have we seen from that? Well, we've seen better quality cigars coming from Alec Bradley
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to where, you know, to where beforehand they were good, they were okay, but they didn't quite hit like what some of the
Right.
new Alec Bradleys that are coming out now. So I see some good. I see some good coming out of this because of the awareness, because of the education, and the
Mm-hmm.
industry is seeing that.
Right. So that's kind of like that. Um, it there was another one that, whoops, I went to the wrong spot. That he has. I've seen some rollers at shops do freshly rolled entire process, and some only put final leaf on it. Does that make a difference in if I can smoke it, then wait? And like Gabe directly answered it. He's like, hopefully yes, that gives you the best chance of them being good and fresh. So
Yeah, and I would talk to I would talk to the roller because a good roller is going to answer the question for you. Ask them is should I can I go ahead and smoke this now or should I let it wait? And I've had Noel roll something for me and say, let this sit in your
yeah,
humidor for a couple of weeks. I've had Luciano say, let this rest in the paper because he would wrap it, roll it up, and then roll it
yeah,
into a newspaper. So let this sit in the newspaper for about 30 to 45 minutes and then smoke it. They're going to tell you whether or not you can
right.
go ahead and smoke it right then and there.
And then Gabe also brings up a good one. It's like one hard thing is like when it's a younger company, when it comes to them releasing a young cigar, small companies have to. They have to in order to
They have
survive,
to,
because they don't have the storage, they don't have the tobacco, they don't have the manpower
and
for all that.
they don't
The
have the
money,
revenue.
they don't have the money. Yeah. and that's what it comes down to.
We talked with Fred
So,
about just this very thing, just last
hmm
2 weeks ago. We talked with Fred, and he
yeah,
he brought up that same point. I would kind of equate it to the whiskey industry when you have a new craft distillery come in, and if they're trying to age their own juice,
hmm
well, you've got a minimum of 18 months, and that's a very young whiskey. Um, and it's not going to be great when you have people like us that are sipping on it and going and trying it. But somebody who says, oh, I want to get this, and I'm going to use this in a cocktail, or I'm going to use this in a mixed drink, or what
right,
have you. It works.
yeah,
It works good. But you're exactly right. Some of them have to come in and produce their cigars and deliver the cigars sooner than really what we would prefer that they did. But they're a business. They've got to get a revenue stream in. And
correct.
you can't age new tobacco, for 3 years and then roll it, or roll it and then let it sit in your aging room for 3 to 5
hmm
years and be sustainable as a business. So yeah, you've got that.
And I want you to answer, but I'm also going to answer because I'm not that far behind you in smoking cigars. For billionaires
Okay.
question,
Since you've been smoking cigars for a long time, since you first started, do you feel the quality of cigars have gotten better or worse than when you first started smoking? Ooh, that is
I,
that's a tough one.
I'm
Um,
gonna. I mean, can I go ahead and
go
answer
go
because I've
for it.
already.
Yeah.
There are some. There have been some that were like older and like that were freaking phenomenal because they had the ability to let it sit. They had, and here's my thing. I think that cigars back, in the '90s had a little because like it wasn't as big of a thing to smoke cigars, you know, because
Yeah.
smoking cigars has like increased, like, people are doing it, and especially since the pandemic. So I want to say, like, yes, there was better quality, but also I think it depends because, like, some areas have not taken care of the land. They've had natural disasters that have ruined it and changed the land. So I think that there's some people like newer ones, you know, like here recently where they've knocked it out of the park because of how they've taken care of the land, how they've taken care of the tobacco, how they've honored that tradition. But it goes back to where it's the time honored tradition. Does that make sense?
Makes absolute sense. And I want to bring it from a different angle. Um, staying on the business side of things. Uh, back in the 90s and the early 2000s, we had a lot of really good high quality cigars. Cigar industry was growing, but not to the extent that what we saw
It is
saw it
now.
grow, what it is
Mm-hmm.
now. So that gave gave the brands the ability to let them age a little bit longer.
Correct.
We've seen some brands that just because of the pandemic, or because of the booming of the cigar industry, that they grew too fast.
Mm-hmm.
And so where they had produced a really good cigar because they let it age and they were using the same tobacco, and then
Mm-hmm.
saw that their sales was just going out the roof and they needed to meet the demand, or felt that they needed to meet the demand, and so they were bringing in other different types of tobacco and doing, using the same blend, but the tobaccos were coming in from other regions. They weren't reblending them.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't trying to put forth an effort to meet that same profile in the blend, and we saw some particular expressions, particular offerings, where they went down. They
Exactly.
went they went down in quality. So I think you see a little bit of both. I would say that we've got some really good cigars now. that that have been produced since the pandemic, and I've seen some of my favorite cigars that I would smoke back in the late 90s and early 2000s, and I
Mhm.
won't touch them now. I
Yeah.
won't touch them now because they're not the same.
And I would have to say, and another thing is like, it's kind of like, and I'm going to say this is the pandemic, is a lot of that tobacco has almost become extinct because the
Yes.
farms shut it down. So, it's like they can't even get that blend that they originally had because it's no longer in existence.
And the land has changed. We've seen a lot of things hit, in the Dominican Republic. We've seen a lot of, natural disasters and not taking care of the land. That's one of the big things with a lot of the Cuban cigars. Where, yes, Cohiba cigars are really good cigars, but are the Cohiba, the Cuban Cohiba cigars that we're getting now as good as what they were 10 years ago? No, because the land has been damaged. Why are they still producing good cigars? Because Habana company that owns Cuba, that owns the Cohiba, that owns Trinidad, that owns Qualdias, that owns all of these, they've had a stockpile of tobacco. If you look at Davidoff's factory and their storage areas, they've got 5 years plus. I mean, they could quit growing tobacco and be able to still produce the numbers that they
Mm-hmm.
need to for the next 5 years. And if you there's a really good documentary on, I think it's on YouTube, on Davidoff that kind of goes through all of this. They've
Yeah.
got like I think they've got like $15 million worth of tobacco that's
Mm-hmm.
in bales
Yeah.
that is just sitting there and continuing to age and continuing to age. So yeah, it's interesting. I
And
love
what Gabe said.
uh well, he's a couple of things here. One,
Mm-hmm.
um a few things that Don Wiggins and Skip Martin agreed to: managing the booming sales without compromising. You have to learn to be okay with being out, and
Mm-hmm.
possibly for a while. And that's one of the things that
Yeah.
we've seen Skip with Roma Craft, to where they were just, we don't have this right now. We're
Yeah.
letting the tobacco age. I mean, we see it on the whiskey industry side as well, to where with the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection, to where they went and they went with the George T. Stagg in 2021, and it didn't release. Reason why? Because it wasn't ready. So they came back and said, we're not going to release this. We
Mm-hmm.
know that it's going to take a hit on our sales. We don't
Right.
care. We want to produce a good, high quality product that people are willing to pay for. Oh, and I love this. And if you educate and create rabid fans, they'll wait.
Yeah. They will. I mean, that's the thing is like, if it's something that you want, they're gonna wait for it.
Yeah.
And it's so it's here's my thing. Is like, if someone really loved that cigar, I'm not gonna say what it is, and the tobacco no longer exists, and they went with a blend that was very similar, and then when you smoked it, it wasn't the same, and it was disappointment. And I mean, I guess I'm gonna go ahead and say it, because it was Yellow Rose, like before COVID, before all that stuff. There was a distinct blend to that, and it was phenomenal. And you can't get that cigar, so they tried to create a blend as close as possible. And then the people who had the original Yellow Roses then smoked the. I want to call it yellow. To me, I'm like, they should have given it another name. It should have
It
been
should
like
have it
Blue
should have
Bonnet
been
or
another,
something.
yeah, it should have been another expression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
Oh,
my point on that.
well, another one. And so since you named yours, the one for me was the Rocky Patel Decade. The Rocky Patel Decade back in 2012 was an amazing cigar,
I
and
didn't smoke
and it. and now it's not the same. And that's one where and I love Rocky, and he produces great cigars. But once you hit that particular, I mean, it's like he grew too big or
Hmm.
needed to continue con- putting them out, and the
Hmm.
decade came down. It came down. So, but that doesn't mean that Rocky Patel's not putting out good cigars. It doesn't mean that Crown Head's not putting out good
Right.
cigars.
Exactly.
It has nothing to do with it's just those particular blends just didn't quite hit what they did beforehand.
Right.
Okay, so good, great conversation, great questions. And billionaire, no question's a silly question. Do you think someone can grow tobacco from a greenhouse and produce cigars that way, or have to be from land, just like people grow from THC from greenhouses? Um, you know, I hope they don't.
They are trying it in Japan. I will just let you know they are trying it in Japan
Hmm.
with how do they call those planters that don't really have the
The hydrophonic, the
yeah
hydrophonic
hydroponic.
ones.
So they're trying that with cigars, and they have said it's not the same. They haven't mastered it yet. So, but my thing is, in order to grow tobacco, you really, really need that soil. You need the certain amount of light. You need the certain amount of shade. I mean, unless it's a controlled greenhouse, kind of like what they're trying to do, um, maybe. But even then, it's still like it's like tobacco is very natural, and if you take away that natural element, it's not going to be the tobacco that it needs to be.
Yeah, I don't think it is. I don't you because our flavors that we're getting, it yes, it's coming from the tobacco itself, and it's coming from the
Mm,
seeds and the way those seeds have been, have been developed. But we've talked so many times. You can take the Indonesian Sumatra that I'm smoking right here, and you can take the Sumatra seed and grow it in Ecuador, or grow it in Dominican Republic, or grow it in Nicaragua, and get a completely different flavor from it. Uh, talking about environments, and controlling what happens to it, the shade grown, the
yeah,
Connecticut shade grown, the shade grown seed, which is an actual seed, is the Sumatra, but it's how they produce it. So it doesn't get direct sunlight. So that's going to, it's there's a canopy, it's like a diffuser
right.
over over the plants. That changes the flavors that you get. So I think going in, taking away all of that, and you take
Well,
away the soil, and you do it in a the nutrients that you get from the soil that changes the flavors on it, and you grow that in a hydroponic type environment, it's going to be like we're smoking just tobacco.
well, and it's kind of like Gabe brings up a good thing. Is like it's a flowering plant. A lot of us forget that there is a beautiful flower that grows on top of it. What makes that flower grow? It's the bees. It's the pollination. It's the cross pollination. So, I mean, you're taking away that. And, it's kind of like, it's kind of like if you go back to the bee movie, I don't know if y'all ever saw that, but it's kind of like the bees, like they got rid of the bees, like said, we're not cross pollinating, we're not pollinating anymore. And the world became dead because of it. Without
Yeah,
those bees, like a lot of times people are like, oh, we really don't really need bees for our tobacco. Heck yes, you do. They're crucial. They're very crucial for this process. So, it, and the thing is kind of like how you were talking about the shading, if it's, with the sun grown versus, the shade, um, that will change the outlook of how that tobacco plant tastes. So to me, I think it's one of the few. It's one of those things. It's kind of like we talked about how the old world back before they rushed it and they were doing everything properly. It was beautiful and perfect. And I think that you have to have that for cigars. You have to have that natural element, kind of like with wines. If you sit there and if you grew your wines like in a greenhouse, you wouldn't have those flavors that you have and that you need from like the natural elements. That's what gives it its beautiful flavor and the nuances.
Yeah, it's. I mean, everything that we're talking about here, from tobacco to the tobacco plants to the grapes, for wines to the different cereal grains for your whiskeys, to you know your different varietals from your agaves, for your tequilas to mezcals and
Yeah,
sotol. Um, Even coffee, with coffee beans, we've got to have proper care for the environments. And I don't want to go down this path of a environmentalist on this, but the farmers, these guys are farmers, and they've got to take care of their land. I was talking with Craig Bingham, who's the owner of Bingham Farms and Bingham Family
hmm,
Vineyards. And he brought up an interesting thing, because he's got grapes that are, grapevines that are 20 years old, and
right.
that is starting to get up into the older
Hmm.
ages. But he was talking about how there was, when we had the freeze in February of 21, how
Right.
that killed some of his plants, and
Hmm.
he's had to takes the vines that he could and move them to another area because it killed the soil there. And so
Right.
he's had to plant new things into that soil to
Hmm.
reestablish
Re.
the
Hmm.
to reestablish all of the vitamins and minerals, in that soil so that he could then put his vines back in there and grow new vines. Well, if you grow a new grapevine, that's 3 years. It takes three
Yeah.
years for a grapevine to be able to produce fruit that's quality enough to even start growing. I mean, start making wines.
And here's another one that that we don't really think about is pesticides.
Yes.
Like and it's like it depends on like what pesticides, how they're using the pesticides, where it's going in the soil, because that's going to change the outcome of the wine, the tobacco, the coffee, all of that. And I think sometimes, like because we're smoking it, we're not thinking of it as a real live plant, and that's what it is you're smoking a salad.
You're smoking. Yes, you're getting your greens in. You're getting your greens in this. So there's the nutrition aspect of it. No, I mean, we in talking with Bingham, he mentioned that he's got some grapes that don't get any of the pesticides, and he's got some vines that was killed by some of the pesticides. And
Hmm.
just to put the age of those into perspective here, okay, to think about this, from the seedling to uh, harvesting on a cigar plant is generally about the 6 to 9 month
Right.
type. For
It's
six
quick.
to 9 month for the first priming. Okay, so same as what we would have in a lot of our other annuals like corn and wheat and rye and the different grains and such. Um, the grapes are perennials. So they come back every year. They get
Hmm.
trimmed back. They come back every year. As I said, it takes 3 years for a grapevine to produce something that's just quality enough for a very basic wine. And
Right.
not even a quality wine. When we think about some of the old world wines in France and Italy and Spain and in Germany and such, there's vines there that are 100 years old,
Yeah,
and those
that's
are some of
insane to
your
think about.
right, and those are some of they're producing less fruit
Right.
than the younger ones are, but some of those grapes are going into some of the best wines that come out of
Yeah.
Bordeaux and Burgundy and Rhone and the
Right.
different regions. They're not so that's those grapes are coming from old vines, and then the wines themselves, they're not aged as long in barrels and such like our whiskeys and stuff are, or a tobacco is. A young scotch is going to be a 10-year-old scotch. So let's think about that. So a young scotch that we drink now, we're drinking a 10-year-old scotch that went into the barrel 10 years ago. And a lot of scotches, some of the higher value scotches are, in the 18, 20, 30,
Yeah.
40, 50, 70, 80 plus years.
Right.
They've been sitting in a barrel for that long. Gabe mentioned earlier, and I saw this in passing by, Fuentes. Okay, so
Yeah.
the standard Fuente, so
Hmm.
the 868s, the Hemingways, the standard lines, those are aged. That tobacco is aged anywhere from 5 to 7 years before it goes into a rolling.
Hmm.
5 to 7 years, and then it'll sit in an aging room anywhere probably from 6 months to a year behind after that. The Opus X's, 7 to
Longer.
12 years.
Yeah.
So 7 to 12 years. Now, I've been smoking cigars for 32 years. You've been smoking cigars for like 26 years.
26. Hmm.
Think about that. That we both have a Purple Rain from 2015.
Hmm.
That tobacco was probably harvested back in 2000, between 2000 and
Hmm.
2004, 2000 to 2004. And then we got the cigar. I mean, the cigar was rolled and then produced for production and made available in 2015.
Hmm.
That kind of makes you think a little bit differently about what it is what we're smoking, and that all of the care that has to come into play for a tobacco leaf to be harvested,
Right.
to be dried out. And you can see
Hmm.
in this picture here, I mean, this is it's dried out. It's gone from let's see, I've got another one here. Um, it's gone from green here
Hmm.
to nope, not this one. Dried out, aged, rolled over a number of years.
Right.
Not months, not weeks, months, number of years.
Right.
So a lot comes into play in what we're doing and what we're smoking
Right.
and enjoying here.
And like and like here's my thing is like people come in and you have your opuses, and they're sitting there and they're saying like, why is it so daggum expensive? Well, that's why it's so daggum expensive is because it's had more care. It needs more care because I mean, I'm sit there and I'm thinking about it. I have some cigars that are older than my daughter, who's 15. I have cigars that are definitely older than my grandson, you know,
Hmm.
and and that's when it comes in that like how are you taking care of your humidor? How are you making sure that you're doing what you need to do? And when people don't, like one guy, he came in and he goes like, yeah, I had Opus X, and I just left them in the humidor, and then I opened them up and they were all dried out, and I'm like, you didn't take care of them, I mean, it's kind of heartbreaking because can you bring it back to that state of how it used to be?
You you
Very
can.
unlikely.
It's very
You
unlikely because if
can,
it's
but it's going to take you several. It's going to take a long time, and it's not going to be like it was originally going to be. You know what I'm saying?
it it'll probably take coming up on a year to be able to revitalize that. You're going to have to take extra special care than if you just took care of it
Right.
in the first place, because so many things have to be in place for the, even be able to start that. And one is that your wrapper can't be cracking, and if it's dried out where your
Hmm.
wrapper is cracking, there is no coming back from that.
Oh, okay. What keeps me from smoking those cigars that I've had for 15 plus years, and what makes people keep cigars for that long? Okay. Uh, I to me, some I'm like, people have that attitude, smoke it if you got it, which I also agree. But to me, those are my special occasions, like the birth of my grandson. Um, those are like, good news cigars, or like it might be a day where I'm feeling like, you know what? I've waited a while. I've deserved this, and I'm going to smoke it. It may not be a special occasion or whatever, but yes, it's an investment, and that's when you have the collection that I have, that I've waited, because like some people have gotten frustrated that they sent me a cigar, and I want to wait on it because I know in a couple of years it's going to be so much better.
Yeah, and I want to make bring out a key point here. Just like with wines, okay, you go out, just stay on that comparison because the two relate to each
Mm-hmm.
other so well.
Yeah, they do.
Um, you go out and buy a wine and you talk to and I'm not talking a grocery store wine because the people that are working at Target, and you can buy some good wines there, but, Target and Walmart and, your grocery store, your what have you, they're not going to know about the wines. You go
Right.
and buy your wine from a wine shop where that's what they do.
Mm-hmm.
They know the business. And ask them, is this a wine that I can let rest? I can lay down. We call it lay down, laying down for a while. There's
Right.
some wines that you can let lay down for 25 years. There's some wines, and it's a Bordeaux blend. And I've had Bordeaux blends where it's a no, this one you need to drink right away.
Mm-hmm.
So that same goes to your cigars.
Right.
There are some cigars that come from some regions that can be let rest, sit in your humidor for multiple years, for 10,
Right.
10 to 15 years, generally on average, is the tops for them.
Right.
There are others,
That
no,
you can't.
no, you can't. There are others where, maybe 2 to 3 years tops for it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where it comes back to you've got to know your regions. There's a reason why some of those the Fuentes, the Opus X's, and the Cubans with the Qualdis and the Trinidads and even the Cuban Cohibas, we can let those rest for many years.
Right.
9 to 12 years. The Padron 24s, even the Padron 9000s on. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because of how they're cared for and what regions that they come from. I love Black Star. I love Noel Rojas,
Yeah,
but
I was about to say the same thing because of the region that they're in, Nicaragua, with the Esteli. You can't let it, it's not going to get better 12 years from now. You know what I'm saying? And in fact, you're going to lose some of that if
yes,
you let it. You're going to lose that spice. Like the whole reason for that Esteli is for that pepper, it's that spice. But if you let it sit too long, you're going to lose that, and it's going to mellow out, and you've missed the point of that cigar. Like, I mean, I wouldn't let it set longer than 5 years,
no, no, no,
because then
no.
that's too long. You want to do it within like 3 to 4 years. Seriously, longer than that,
I
then you're going to be SOL.
where I've had a Padron 9000, which is one of their lower end cigars. That set for 14 years, and it was a phenomenal smoke. And
Right.
Gabe brings up another good point. Gabe is just killing it here. Um, the boutique cigar industry. We know Noel. We know Sebastian. We
Mm-hmm.
know everybody that's behind it, and we can talk to them and say, will this get better if it ages? I've had Noel say, no, this one needs to be smoked within the next couple of years. Unfinished business, which I'm
Yeah.
working on a review for. Um, it's a 3 to 5 year old age cigar.
Yeah.
I would not age the Hemingways that come from Arturo
No, oh my
Fuente
gosh, no.
for the 15 years, but I could age an Opus X for 15 years.
I wouldn't do like those longer than 2 to 3 years on
Yeah,
the Hemingway because
and they come from the
it's
same factory. But
yeah,
the blends are similar to that of the Opus X's, but the tobacco's different.
right. And that's why we harp about how you keep your collections of cigars well stored for more than 5 years. You have to be a professional humidification expert. So and that's why like I rotate mine. That's why I make sure the humidity's there because I have my deep aging one. And is it cigars that are going to go longer than 5 years? I wouldn't do it, but because the way I have them stored and how particular I am about it and how I have my like I mean, I'm checking on it. I'm making sure that it's where it needs to be, then yes. But even then, and I'm very finicky about how my cigars are stored. I mean, I've moved them into closets just because I have the humidity in the room. I have the humidity in my tepidors. I have the humidity reader that's even in the boxes. The cedar, how it's stored, it is crucial. And some people think that I'm crazy and kind of like a Nazi for it. Uh, there's a reason because and that was like one thing when we had the freeze because I lost electricity
Hmm.
for like the entire week. And I couldn't just say, "Hey, can I store my cigars here when we're trying to get food and all other stuff and there's several families living underneath one roof of a house." You know, that was one thing that, I put blankets, I where I put them in my house was like the warmest part and I put blankets over it. I'm like, I'll freeze before I let my cigars go. And some people aren't that way, and that's okay. It
Oh,
it
I
just
I
depends on
took
how much you invest in your collection.
I took every single blanket in the house because we lost electricity too. Took every single blanket and had my my humidors, my Tupperdoors all covered up with it. Uh, yeah, and I went to my son's for a couple of days, so that my dog and I wouldn't freeze. Came back
Hmm.
and found sleeping bags, for the last day.
Yeah.
And then when the electricity came back on, I moved those to where it was going to be closer to a heating vent to bring them back up and brought the
Hmm.
temperature of the room back up slowly and consistently as opposed to just putting it on a high blast. Why?
Hmm.
Not for my comfort, but for my cigars. But
Yeah.
you got to understand, we have thousands of dollars invested in our cigars. I told you the other day how much I have in wines. I have thousands of dollars in my wines. I've got
Hmm.
probably 10,000 or so dollars in my whiskeys and my cigars. So this is a major investment for us. You've got to take care of it. We think so quickly about our food. The power goes out and okay, what perishables do I need to get out of the freezer and refrigerator and get those into other locations so that's safe. But we don't think about that with our cigars. But yet we've got equally or more invested in
Hmm.
our cigars, whiskeys, and wines than we do in food.
Yeah. And do you keep your deep aging blends in separate other ones? Yeah, I have. We've talked about this, and it's kind of before you were like, I wanted to say a dedicated watcher, but like when we first started talking about this, like it depends on the cigar. It depends on how much humidity. It depends on the area it was grown in. That's how I have my cigars. It's kind of like when you have 30-gallon totes and you have like a plethora of them and you have about like 5 to 7,000 cigars, you're going to make sure that you're taking care of them and storing it properly.
Yes,
So I mean
yes.
it's that's what it comes down to.
Well, and not every cigar does good at the same humidity temperature ratio and combination. That whole 70/70, if that totals up to 140, forget that right now. And I cringe whenever I hear other
Mm-hmm.
uh, people talk about that. Some cigars do much better.
Yeah.
You can keep your Cubans, your true Cubans, at
Mm-hmm.
59% humidity, and they will thrive at
Yeah.
that. Nicaraguans below 67, they're going to dry out.
Yep. Yep. And it's kind of like Gabe was saying. Yep. I store my Cuban, Dominican, Honduras at 65%. My Nicaraguans, Brazilians, like at 68. Uh, so, I mean, it also depends on the mix of it.
Yep.
So that's like another thing. And so, like, I mean, all my totes have different humidities on it, and so, I mean, it's just kind of it's educating yourself and knowing what it is. But I think it's kind of like for the cigar, for most of the people who come in and buy cigars for shops and stuff, and they're going to smoke it within the next couple of months. You're going to be okay at 70.
Yes, you will. Yes.
But if you're collecting it and you have hundreds and thousands of cigars, that's going to be a different story.
I to kind of build off of billionaire's question on deep aging ones, and along this line of what we're talking about now. My deep aging ones is in a temperature controlled uh, cigar winador, refrigerator thing to where I've got the humidity set at 65% and I've got the temperature set at 67%. And that stays that way consistently. But even that, I'm still checking on that humidity and that temperature on a weekly basis
Right.
on my ones my everyday smokes. I've got a humidor that I go to for my everyday smokes and even my travel door, and I'll go back and forth between those two. I'm opening that up every single day. I'm letting that airflow, air circulate through that because that way the air doesn't stagnate. I'm monitoring what the humidity level is and the temperature
Mm-hmm.
level is on those. I'm rotating my cigars on a weekly basis, like you said, once a week, and that rotation could be just as simple as I pick them up, I'm looking at them, and I'm putting them back down because
Mm-hmm.
it's going to rotate. Um, as you're going through the cigars, it doesn't have to be something that was like, okay, well, these were on the top for 3 weeks, and I need to move them down to the middle and bring the bottom ones up to the top. It doesn't have to be that.
Just no.
Just pick them up, look at them,
Mm-hmm. Move them around.
move them around. As you're figuring out what it is that you're wanting to smoke,
Mm-hmm.
you're rotating them. It's fine.
Yep.
You don't have to be anal about it, and we know some people that are very anal about it.
I used to
But
be extremely anal about it until I grew my collection to where it is. Now it's just me moving boxes around or just picking up the thing. Okay, moving these cigars over here, moving that. I mean, it's quick rotations, and that happens usually on Wednesdays,
yep,
or the night before. Um, so, I mean, I just did, seriously, right before we came on, I just rotated one of my my 30 plus gallon totes. I just quickly rotated all of those around. I'm like, okay, I did this last week, but also I think it's because how regularly we smoke too. That comes into play too. Is like and it's like I talk about this. I'll sit there and I'll plan. Okay, these are going to be my everyday smokes for the week. Then I open it up and I'm like, I don't want any of these. What the hell was I thinking?
Right?
I'm like, what the heck? And I go for something to a tote that I may not have looked at since last week.
And
Yeah.
we have to keep the amount of cigars that we do for how much we smoke. Because if I only kept 100 or less cigars, I'm going to be out of cigars in 2 weeks tops.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got to keep these, and so like you, we've got a lot of money that's invested in these,
Hmm.
and for a reason, not just because we like smoking cigars, but because this is our business. This is what we do as well.
So,
I like this. He's trying to get a couple of totes empty before UG roast. Yep.
yeah.
Which that's
I
coming
I
around in
had to
March.
I had to buy like two more totes because I was like, you know, I outgrew my totes. And my kids make fun of me. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go to the lounge, and they're like, are you gonna buy any? Yeah, I'll just buy some to smoke. That
No, you
that doesn't
don't.
happen. No,
No, you
it
don't.
doesn't. Because it's like, okay, I'll buy one or two to smoke, but then I'm like, ooh, they have this, they have this. I haven't had that in a while. I want to, it's been a minute, so I want to put that in my humidor. So I
This
mean,
is I hate to interrupt you on this, but we've got
yeah.
something to do, and we're after 2 hours. We've got to roll for the giveaway
Oh,
here.
I know. I'm so excited. So I'm gonna let you and I'm gonna give shouts out. I thank you for doing this because um I told you like I just got hit with new laws that have like I was sitting there thinking, okay, October is gonna be my easy month. November, December, it's gonna be like smooth sailing. Then all of a sudden the government comes in and says, hey, we're changing how we're doing Star Alt 2. And I have over 100 kids at my campus that, you know, I have to have ARD meetings and IEP. So, like, and then all of a sudden, I've gotten like in 10 new kids that have just enrolled and I have to do their reevaluation. So, I thought this was going to be my easy, smooth selling last couple of months. And the last 2 weeks, I'm just like, I've been hit. And so it's just been like a crazy. So Graybeard has like gone through, looked at all of our followers, looked at all the Leaf and Grain followers, looked at the Drew Estate, looked at his followers, looked at all the pages and all the rules. And how many people were like so excited to get on to this competition? It was like, how many did you say? Over 103?
we have over 100 entries now. There's been some that entered in, and I'm gonna go live here. Give me a minute here, because I'm gonna go live on Instagram. Real estate cigar case. Anyway, all right. There's the title.
Tiffany's like, 102 weeks, I need to step up my game.
Yes, ma'am, you do. All right. So I am going live on Instagram here as well. I
Hello, Instagram.
hope hope the sound is okay. Here you can see here we are live right now on our YouTube
Hi,
show. There's Miss
Instagram.
Red. So we are about to do the giveaway on this. So just to let everybody see again, you've got this beautiful two cases right here, two holders the for your lighter and cutter. You've got a flask. This is kind of difficult doing this. I'm sitting there watching it in the video here. You've got the flask here, but this is the one that I'm really, I mean, I'm jealous of because I can't win this. This is like
It
6 or 7
like that.
cigars. I mean, this is pretty sweet. You can look at it. I mean, this is
It's beautiful. It's a leather, and
this.
it's hard.
Yes.
It's not gonna fold.
No,
It's
no.
good size.
This is solid, and this is a good size case here. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to. I've got everything up here. Let me share this on this screen here, so everybody can see. And yes, I will bring the camera over for Instagram over so that we can see it. So you can see I've got all of the names. There's, number of
Whoa!
people that have, entered multiple times. 130 entries on this. So 130 entries, and so Instagram people, you should be able to see that. Actually, let me turn this around so that I can see what I'm doing here. Okay, so we can see that. All right, so we're going to spin it one time, and the winner that comes up is going to be the one that enters it. So again, you can see all of the names in here. These are your Instagram handles. I did check every single one of these to make sure that they were following the rules and following everybody that we told to do, and that they tagged people on this. So with all of that, and we did have a couple that didn't. I tried to get in contact with those that I could get in contact and say, hey, you're missing following of so and so person. But anyways, with all that being said, let's spin the wheel.
Oh, it even has its own sound.
It does. There's the winner, that Recon Cigar Guy. So that is the winner. Okay, so if you are watching this, then please, 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 please contact me. Send me your information. DM me your information, and we will get this out to you. So congratulations, that Recon
Recon.
Cigar Guy. Congratulations on that.
Yeah.
Remember to DM me your information, and we will get this out to you. So, Instagram, have a good night. Thank you for everybody for tuning in. Wave to him, Red. All right, back to the other show.
Yes.
I will I will put the rest of the information in that later. So, very cool. Very cool gift prize. This is not the last prize that we're going to do. We're going to start bringing those out some more. Big shout out to Drew Estate for providing these for us.
Yes. So they
All
did
of the
awesome with the prizes.
Yes, all of the swag was provided to us by Drew Estate. So we thank you so much for that. Um, Next week, the lovely Miss Ash Red is going to be going to her daughter's performance during the show. So we are going to have Joe Galino, our friend, co-writer here at Leaf and Grain, co-writer with me over at the Whiskey Network. He does some amazing cigar pairing reviews over on the
Mhm.
Whiskey Network. He's also a co-host on the Great Lakes, or the Great Cigar and Pipe Show. I keep on wanting to call it the Great Lakes Smoke Show or whatever it
I
was.
know because that's what we knew it originally as.
Yeah, so he's has a great show on Tuesday nights. Um, Same time, 7 p.m. on Tuesday nights. He does a show once a month, and then Ron and the rest of the guys in that show, they have a weekly show where they bring in some amazing guests
Hmm.
and have just such a great time, and they do a lot of giveaways there. So Please come back next week. Joe and I will be doing a cigar pairing. He and I are going to pair the cigar with a drink, but most likely a whiskey because that's what we do. Right here on that, week after that, we have got Bagani Cigars. Brad
Mhm.
from Bagani Cigars, one of the first pure African Puro cigars.
Mhm.
Tobacco, rolled, manufactured, everything right there in Africa. So
Mhm.
he's going to be on the show in 2 weeks. Um,
Mhm.
trying to think anything else.
Yes, and just make sure that you're following us. So we've got guests coming up. We've got different things coming up. So, and I appreciate him stepping in so I can go be a mom. So, because that we say family first, you know.
Yes,
So I appreciate that, but still tune in, guys. So and ladies.
yes.
So.
Bottle Night Friday. So this Friday night at the Underground, I will be there hosting a bottle night with Eric Bay of Black Star Line Cigars
Mhm.
with their Cut and Light. It's a
Mhm.
combined event.
Yeah.
So please, if you're in the DFW area, please come out, show your love. If you buy a cigar, Black Star Line, I will pair a cigar with for you on that one. I mean, I will pair a
Mhm.
drink for you on that one. Or if you want to come up with, you bring one of your own Black Star Lines or your own cigars. We'll do the pairings.
Mhm.
But if you buy one of theirs while you're there, then we'll come up with an extra special pairing for you on that. I'll be bringing some different bottles that I haven't opened yet on. So we'll
Yes.
see what's got it. So we've got some fun things. You've guys seen the events. We've got some new shows coming up. We talk about this all the time. I cannot mention enough how much going out, going to our page. You know, a lot of people are part of the group but haven't gone out and liked our page on Facebook. That helps us out. That
Mhm.
helps us out so much. Being able to take those numbers, those statistics, that demographics to the vendors for sponsors and say, yes, this is what the kind of traffic that we get. Going out to our website, go out to our website and read the articles that all of our
Mhm.
wonderful writers are putting out there. Joe just published a cigar review for the tailgate put out by Karen Berger. We're going to give honest, holistic reviews of these. Bruce has talked with, we talked with Bruce, we talked with all, just about everybody we've done the review, and they're appreciative of how we do our reviews because
Mhm.
we're not giving a review just because somebody's a friend. We're giving a review on the cigar and what we think about the cigar.
Right.
But other articles, you want to learn about the Manhattans? I've got an article there about the Manhattan. Just go and search Manhattan. Um, Go out there and check out to see what we've got. If you're reading the articles, that helps us because it shows how much time is being spent on the website. That helps us out. Like and subscribing us right here on YouTube is so big. That helps us. We get to 1,000 subscribers. We can go to our we can go to the different vendors, different companies, and say, look, this is the kind of traffic we're getting. We
Mhm.
would love it if you would consider sponsoring us. That's what helps
Yes.
us.
It does.
So enough of all of that. Great show, great
Yes.
conversations, great questions.
Go make you a fall cocktail.
Go make a fall cocktail. By the way, the Warfighter 762 with the Indonesian Sumatra,
Mhm.
that was a good pairing.
Yeah.
Just like what we thought, that was a good pairing. But
Yeah.
we thank you guys. We appreciate it. Come back next week. Joe Galino and I pairing a cigar with whiskey. And until then, explore the pairings.
There's something for everyone. Have a good night, y'all.